All right, game 2 between Firesrest and Matticus. It's Matticus that is 1-0 up, and it is Matticus that we're looking at in the bottom left corner of Oxide, with Firesrest the Zerg in the top right. So pretty straight up in the last game. Firesrest was sort of the first to put on a bit of pressure and actually got some pretty good trades. So, where did it go wrong for him? To be honest, it went wrong in the macro. In the early stages of the game, he wasn't droning up as hard as he should have been, and therefore he didn't really have the income to support that unit production. So, when Matticus pushed across the map, he was pushing off 4 bases compared to the Zerg's 3, and that should just never be the case. If you're playing Zerg, you should always be ahead in bases, always. So, not having that kind of hatchery count and not having the income, Firesrest just wasn't quite able to put together the units to see off the Protoss push. So even though he had actually traded quite well, swapping out Lings for Immortals and stuff like that, doing good things, when it came to it, he just didn't really have the numbers. And I lost the third, and often there's just no way back from there, because you're on 2 hatcheries and you just cannot produce quickly enough, especially if the Protoss has done a good job of macroing and has enough gateways and stuff behind them, which Matticus did. So we'll see if this game goes any different. Matticus again has gone for a pretty quick Nexus before Cybercore, and given that that's what he did in the first game, if you're Firesrest, you'd have to be thinking about just a big Ling flood, because Matticus would certainly be weak to that sort of pressure. Anytime someone's going to go Nexus first, they're not going to have warp gate very early. It's going to be a bit of a while before they can really get significant numbers of units out. So there's definitely an opportunity there for the Zerg to just hold down the Z button and get up in their opponent's face with sort of 16 Lings or something like that. It doesn't look like that is what we're going to see. Speed is started, but Firesrest is still mining gas here. If you are going to do that big Ling flood, you take these workers out of gas, get them collecting minerals, because it's minerals that you're going to need, and you certainly wouldn't be building an Evo chamber. So given that it's not going to be a big flood of Lings, I want to see these larvae being instantly turned into workers. There's minerals to do it, so the fact that these larvae are just sitting about idle is a real problem for the income. Look, no workers in production, whereas Protoss is chrono boosting out workers. So the Ling gets in, has a good scout. The Zealot of course sees it off, but as we can see, Firesrest's been in as well with the Overlord, and sees the Stargate, and that is a brilliant scout. It's so important to see this type of stuff. So he knows that there's a Stargate coming. He knows that he might have to see off an Oracle, or might be dealing with potentially Phoenix. Matticus got this worker hidden out on the map. I quite like that. Gives you the possibility of dropping a pylon, a forward pylon. Gives you a little bit of vision in the middle of the map as well. Firesrest Evolution Chamber is done, but no upgrades coming out of it just yet. Roach Warren just about to finish up, and a second gas coming down as well. So I would suspect we're going to see a lair fairly soon. But the third base is pretty lit, really, isn't it? And we're still not really droning up as hard as you should as Zerg. Build the queens. Because bear in mind, queens are good defensively. They don't use up larvae, which is fantastically useful. They spread creep, and they're pretty tough units. They can see off an Oracle, they can see off all sorts of stuff. So I'd like to see more queens, and I'd just like to see, again, idle larvae with enough money to turn them into drones. Just get it happening a little bit faster on that. Droning up could go a long way. So the Oracle is going to set off across the map. Let's see what Matticus can get done with this. In general, at pro level, if they kill sort of 2 workers, that's pretty standard. 3 workers is good. 4 workers is unheard of. at EMS Noob League standard, there is potential for an Oracle to radically change the game. You know, an Oracle can get in here and can kill 10 workers or something. Harder against Zerg because ultimately the Queen will be in effect, but you know, if there's no micro from the Zerg, it can be problematic. The Oracle hasn't activated just yet, and still hasn't activated. So, I don't know, a bit of mismanagement here with this Oracle. Has Matticus used an Oracle before? Is he aware that you do have to switch it on? You know, it's already taken so much damage that a few more hits from the Queen will actually see it off. He doesn't want to fight the Queen. You don't want to fight the Queen. You want to be killing soft workers. So 5 kills so far. Might even get another one over here. Certainly could if it was focusing workers rather than queens, but ultimately the queen shut it down. Still though, 5 worker kills is not too bad, and look, Matticus has got the worker lead, and you know, again, it just shouldn't be happening. A Zerg should always have the worker lead. It's as simple as that. You as Zerg, you know, you can saturate Abyss so quickly. Let's just have a look. There are currently 11 larvae on the map, idle larvae just parked on this map. So you know, if he turns all of those into workers, this Abyss instantly has 11 workers, 12 workers, whatever, mining at it, and that is a very quick. You know, no other res Protoss Terran cannot match that at all. Look how many workers Matticus has got oversaturated here, ready to transfer. So as soon as this Nexus finishes, you can just send those down, and so his income is just going to be massively ahead of the Protoss. Sorry, of the Zerg. It already is, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. So Roach speed is coming. There are a lot of Lings in production. How much scouting has Firesrest done? Has he seen this army? I don't know. I like that the Lings are busy on the map. You know, he is doing a good job of map vision, of sending stuff about, of looking around the place. He's had Overlord spread, but he knows there's a Stargate on the map. He's seen the Oracle, and he doesn't have any units that can shoot up. So that could be a problem. There is a pretty good chance he gets a snipe on this. I'm tempted, if this is me, I'm just right-clicking on the Nexus, focusing down the Nexus, and then running. Perfect, absolutely perfect. So that snipe on the 3rd is critical here, because Matticus was going to just run away with this economically if he didn't get that. So manages to snipe a Nexus for essentially no losses, possibly 1 or 2 links, nothing important at all. Hydras are now in production, and that is good. He's seen the Void Ray count. There are still Voids in production, so yeah, he needs to have something that shoots up. But does he know about this double robo? Because it's a slightly, you know, wonky looking build, the double robo and the single Stargate. You don't generally build Stargate units and robo units. It's pretty unusual. Matticus going for this double expo. Presumably has found himself with a bit of cash in the bank and thought, I've got a lot of worker oversaturation. I'm going to go ahead and just build a pair of Nexuses, and why not? You know, it's still Firesrest. Look, 8 workers out of 16 in the main, 12 out of 16 here, 13 out of 16. You know, so still not saturated in these 3 bases, and you know, that's going to trip you up. At this point, you know, we are 8.5 minutes in. At this point, a Zerg you should have twice this many workers, essentially 90 workers is what you should be looking at, so that you can just crank out units left, right and center. That is the Zerg's main strength, just the speed at which they can produce. But look, Matticus with the saturated 3rd and with the oversaturation, as soon as this finishes up, he's going to be ready to harvest an income for it. So you know, he can easily afford these production structures. He can easily afford to throw down an extra 6 gateways and just actually do what the Zerg should be doing, which is to just outproduce his opponent. These units parked here, you know, I'd like to see what we saw before. I'd love to see the Lings just being busy. You know, Lings in here would just devastate. There'd be a lot of dead workers. There'd be a dead Nexus before this stuff could get over to defend, or even send the Roaches in to snipe this Nexus. And when the units come to defend, you know, the Lings up into the main base could have an absolute field day. So Firesrest needs to get busy here. He needs to be doing more to slow down his opponent, because otherwise, like, you know, Protoss off 4 bases can just build whatever they like, and that is a very dangerous thing indeed. You know, once a Protoss has got a large amount of production up, Protoss army is very hard to beat. So the Lings are going to come in here. You don't want these Lings fighting on their own. Everything else is going to be lit to the party. So the Lings are going to retreat. There just isn't enough Zerg here. Look how much Protoss there is. You know, it's a big army advantage. And while the connections with the Baals are good, now that there's any Hydras left, they're going to fall very, very quickly indeed. And indeed, the army supply actually falling pretty substantially for both players, but it is Firesrest that's going to have to hit up a full retreat. He's got a lot of Lings on the ground, and again, you know, while that engagement is going on, I'd have loved to have seen the Lings just, you know, shifted around the edge of the map to run in here and just get a bit of hurt on the opponent. Matticus feeling brave. He steps on to creep, and so now's the time to hit him. While the Stalkers are out on their own, you can get a good surround on them. Doesn't have very many Hydras. Now that this stuff is arced, you know, the Lings, look, they can't get the surround anymore, and actually they're just running backward and forward, messing about. So sort of missed the opportunity to get involved. Those corrosive Baal connections are good, but again, there just isn't enough left here for the Zerg player. So it looks suspiciously like Matticus is going to do this. You know, this little surround on the side here is decent. Does manage to fend this off for the moment, but you know, can't really continue to push. Does need to just pull back, regroup. The army supply is just massively in favor of the Protoss, and yes, some of that is in production. There's no warp gate, weirdly, but you know, as the Protoss army streams across the map here, it's going to be very, very hard to stop indeed. Upgrades wise, you know, it's +2 armor, it's +1. This time there is melee upgrades, so the +2 on the Lings is going to be super effective, but you know, he's losing bases here pretty quickly. All of this is vulnerable to Zerglings, all of it is. So you know, if he can get a big old surround, if he can get a flank, send the Zerglings around the back and get a big surround on this, maybe, but he needs a lot of Lings at present. He has 12 army supply, and those are all in production. It's GG. There is no way. Alrighty, there we go.